Hi and welcome to Amirki pattern instructional video. This is my very first video. It's not quite perfect, so bear with me on this. I have a lot to improve. I've cut out both the main fabric and the lining using the pattern. Now I'm lining the shoulder seams together. Make sure you iron it before you mark the pattern, or else you might find it a bit difficult to manage the fabric. I've used a cotton here, but I suggest you use a cotton material. Muslin as the lining. This is by far one of the easiest methods to put a frock together. All seam allowances in this pattern are just half an inch, so make sure you mark, you know where the half an inch line is on your sewing machine. As you can see, I'm guiding my fabric along that line. Now I'm doing the same with my lining. I'm lining up the shoulder seams and pinning it. Use as much pins as you need. Now press the seams open on both the main fabric and the lining. Line them both with right sides together. Match them at the shoulders and make sure you get the neck part right. It's important that you cut your fabric out with straight, clean lines, because if you have a jagged line, you might not be able to match the main fabric with the lining. You'll have trouble doing that, so keep that in mind when you're cutting your fabric out. I've included the fabric layout on how to lay them on the fabric as well. So make sure you go through all that. Now I am joining the main back bodice to the lining from the back, as you can see. All you have to do is trim the corners. Make sure you trim the corners at an angle, so that once you turn it inside out, it won't be bulky. And trim the neckline also. Since we have a half an inch seam allowance around the neck, I suggest you trim it to a 1/4 inch. And then add some cut marks along the curved edge, because or else it won't lay flat once you turn it inside out. Just make sure you don't cut the stitches. Use a small scissor if you're not used to it, stitching the armholes. Now I'm turning the bodice inside out. I'm turning it to the right side actually. Make sure you turn the corners. I'm using my scissor to turn the corners, but be careful not to poke a hole through your dress. Make sure you use something blunt to do that. And then take it to the iron and press it. Now I'm pinning the side seams together and sewing it, as you can see. Again, I'm pinning the right sides together, and the main fabric to the main fabric and the lining to the lining, as you can see. And again, 1/2 inch sewing allowance. Once you're done, again you have to press it open and then turn it inside out. Sew the skirt by joining the two selvage edges together. Then lay it flat with the stitched selvage edge on the right side and bring the folded midpoint on top of the stitch line and finger press. Open and cut through the inner layer. A 1.5 inch opening would be sufficient. Run 2 gathering stitches with the largest stitch length setting on the machine. Make sure both the gathering stitches don't overlap each other. To gather the skirt, pull out a stitch or two from the edges so it will be easy to pull the thread. Once it's evenly gathered, pin the 2 edges to the bodice back and the mid front to the bodice front and the side. Then adjust the gathers accordingly. Forgive the mess around my sewing space. I am simultaneously supervising my daughters on homeworks and the like during COVID. Use any amount of pins you need to hold the skirt to the bodice, and sew with a normal length to make sure you sew in between the 2 gathering stitches and attach the skirt to the bodice main fabric only. Press the seam upward and press the lining seam inward so it stays covering the gathers within the lining and the main fabric. Undo the gathering stitches once you are done. I chose to hand sew the bodice lining to the bodice by using a small hem stitch by hand. As you can see, I am going through every other 2 stitches or so on the machine stitch so it stays firm. You could also top stitch it by machine, but for this project I chose to hand stitch it. For this frock I am attaching a zipper, or preferably 1/2 inch or so longer than the opening. Attach the 2 back bodice pieces at the back midpoint while tapering towards the end of that cut mark from the waistline. use a wide basting stitch on machine or either by hand and then press open the seams. Lay the zipper on the pressed open seam, pin and use as much pins as you need and secure it in place. And then transfer the pins to the front since we will be top stitching the zipper. Using a zipper foot on your machine, top stitch the zipper like so. You can purchase this pattern with instructions, which is an instant download on Etsy. I'll leave the link in the description below. If you live in Sri Lanka, you can contact me via FB or Instagram for inquiries and order the pattern in print with fabric and zipper or buttons as well. Once you're done securing the zipper to the frock, unpick the basting stitches at the opening with an unpick. Try to do it carefully, you might rip your frock in the process. If you hand sewed it, it's much easier to take it off, but this method works well for me. Ironing is very important when sewing. This simple action will save you a lot of unpicking mistakes, trust me. So for the hem of this dress, I determined the finished height I wanted and marked it and ironed the same width along the skirt and then sewed it on machine. Now the frock is complete. Give it another thorough iron and you are done. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe. Until next time, thank you and take care.